The Great Hall of Concord shimmered like a living nebula, its walls composed of liquid crystal that reflected the colors of every known world represented there. From emerald Threxian delegates to the serpentine Vurol, the chamber buzzed with languages and frequencies that only the translation fields could tame into order. And then there was him, the human. Ambassador Elias Mercer of Earth stood quietly at the center of the hall, his posture relaxed, his black uniform immaculate. The flag of the Terran Republic gleamed faintly on his left shoulder, barely noticeable next to the grand banners of galactic empires that towered above him. In this place of thousand-year civilizations, the human delegation was a novelty, tolerated, curious, but not respected. It was supposed to be a trade conference, a simple exchange of technology and culture. But Elias had brought something that changed the entire tone of the meeting, a prototype spaceship, docked just outside the orbital station, the Daedalus 1. Rumors spread like wildfire. The humans had brought a ship. A ridiculous, laughable ship. When the alien diplomat arrived, High Minister Zrelt of the Zinari Dominion, his expression already radiated disdain. His body was a floating mass of bioluminescent tendrils, hovering above the floor on antigrav filaments. His eyes glowed a faint blue, unblinking and cold. So, human, Drelt's voice vibrated through the hall, translated into a silky baritone. You request audience to display a craft. Elias smiled faintly. A vessel, yes. Humanity's next step. A ship that embodies what we are. Zrelt's tendrils twitched, an alien sign of amusement. Ah, how quaint. Your species has been part of the Concord for less than 2 centuries, and already you believe you can impress us with engineering? A low murmur of laughter spread among the delegates. The Vurol coiled in their seats, their slit-pupilled eyes flashing mockery. Even the normally stoic Threxian enclave let out a rumbling vibration that translated as amusement. Elias didn't flinch. He simply gestured to the holographic display hovering before him, and with a soft hum, the Daedalus 1 appeared in midair. It was nothing like the sleek, luminous craft the aliens favored. No curved hulls, no shimmering organic membranes. Instead, it looked brutal, angular, metallic. A shape born from fire and human stubbornness rather than elegance. The hull bore scars of reentry burns and what looked like physical armor plating, actual armor plating in an age when shields and energy fields had rendered such things obsolete. This, Elias began calmly, is the culmination of 200 years of Terran engineering. A vessel built not for beauty, but for endurance. It can operate independently, without resupply, for decades. It carries a crew of 40, sustained entirely by onboard systems, and Zrelt interrupted, laughter rippling through his voice. Decades? You designed a sarcophagus. Why would anyone wish to travel in such discomfort for so long? Because, Elias said quietly, we travel differently than you do. We explore differently. We survive differently. The diplomat's amusement deepened. Surely you jest. Such a ship, heavy, inefficient, primitive, belongs in a museum. You humans cling to your metal shells like insects hiding in cocoons. The Concord has provided you with FTL arrays and quantum displacement fields. And yet, you build that. He pointed a shimmering tendril at the holographic projection, as if disgusted. Elias nodded slowly, as though expecting the reaction. Yes. We build what we trust. What we can fix with our hands. What we can understand without praying to the machine gods. We build ships that don't fail just because a particle in a quantum drive blinks out of existence. Primitive, Zrelt said. Reliable, Elias corrected. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Elias knew the truth, they would never understand. The aliens of the Concord had long since transcended the concept of struggle. To them, survival was automated. Travel was effortless. Their ships were grown, not built. Their wars, when they occurred, were fought by proxies and drones. They'd forgotten what it meant to hold a wrench in their hands while the vacuum of space threatened to tear them apart. And to them, humanity's crude vessel was laughable. Zrelt extended a tendril toward the display, causing the hologram to spin slowly. Armor plating? Manual control systems? Analog redundancy? You must be joking. Elias smiled again, a small, unreadable smile that made several nearby aliens shift uncomfortably. You could call it that, Minister. But I assure you, humanity never jokes about survival. The alien diplomat chuckled, dismissing him with a flick of bioluminescent light. The Concorde will file your design under cultural artifact. Consider it a curiosity. Your Daedalus will not be licensed for interstellar travel under Concorde standards. The laughter that followed was polite, condescending. It filled the hall like static. Elias simply inclined his head. Understood, Minister. And then he turned and walked away, boots echoing on the crystalline floor, each step sharp and deliberate, like the sound of defiance. Behind him, the alien laughter continued, fading only when the human left the chamber. The translation field picked up the muttered phrases, primitive species, metal coffin, inefficient. They didn't see what he saw. They didn't understand what the ship truly was, not yet. For Elias Mercer, the Daedalus 1 wasn't just a ship. It was a promise. And that promise would soon burn through the arrogance of the stars. It began as a whisper across the trade lanes, a rumor that the Daedalus 1 had launched from Sol without authorization. By the time the Concorde bureaucracy noticed, it was already gone, a dim metallic object slipping quietly into the edge of known space, its thrusters burning chemical fire instead of elegant graviton jets. To the galactic elite, it was an act of foolishness. To humanity, it was a declaration. Ambassador Elias Mercer stood in the command center of the ship he'd fought to build, watching the stars stretch across the viewport like streaks of cold light. The hum of the engines, real, physical, vibrating through the deck, was a comfort to him. He preferred the noise of machinery to the silence of alien perfection. The crew of the Daedalus 1 was small but fiercely loyal: engineers, pilots, a biologist, even a poet. Each had volunteered knowing the mission was dangerous, perhaps even suicidal. They weren't explorers in the traditional sense. They were believers in a simple idea that every alien diplomat had laughed at. If you rely too much on perfection, you forget how to survive imperfection. The ship's communications officer, Lieutenant Aria Navarro, broke the silence. Signal from Concorde Command. They're demanding our return. Unauthorized departure, violation of Treaty Code 47.3. Elias didn't look away from the stars. Acknowledge receipt. And our reply, sir? Send this. Too late. Navarro smirked, fingers flying over the console. Sent. The Daedalus 1 glided silently toward a region of space long marked untraversable, the Lysera Rift. A spatial anomaly known for swallowing ships whole. Every Concorde vessel that entered vanished without trace. The Zinari Dominion had declared it forbidden territory, labeling it a dead zone where the laws of physics bent and snapped like glass. Elias wanted to go there. Captain, said Chief Engineer Havelock, an older man with grease permanently etched into his hands. We're approaching the rift boundary. Gravitic readings are fluctuating, no known pattern. Perfect, Elias murmured. Bring main drives to 70%. Lock analog controls. Havelock frowned. Analog? You sure? We could just. Yes, Elias interrupted. Digital nav won't survive what's coming. We do this by hand. The crew exchanged glances. This was what they'd trained for. The ship didn't use Concorde AI systems or self-stabilizing quantum arrays. Every control could be operated manually, every circuit bypassed, every system redundant, triple redundant. It was, by alien standards, madness. And yet, as the Daedalus 1 crossed into the rift, the madness began to make sense. The stars warped. Space itself seemed to ripple, folding and refolding in impossible patterns. Navigation data went incoherent. A Concorde ship would have been instantly lost, its automated systems would have crashed, unable to parse reality. But human hands still gripped human levers. Human eyes still read analog gauges. And human intuition, that strange, ancient survival instinct, guided them through. Gravity surge, shouted Aria. 15G spike at 30 degrees. Counter with port thrusters. Havelock barked. Hold hull integrity. The ship screamed as pressure built against its armor plating, but it held. The hull didn't shatter, The redundant systems didn't fail. They burned fuel, recalibrated manually, and pushed through the distortion. Minutes felt like hours. The rift twisted around them like a living thing, but the Daedalus kept moving, ugly, stubborn, and indestructible. When the distortion finally cleared, they saw it. A planet. Hidden inside the rift. A world of pale blue oceans and dark continents, shrouded by storms and magnetic fields. No beacon, no transmissions. Yet there were signs, orbiting wrecks of ancient ships, Concord and alien alike. Some of them were massive, their organic hulls cracked open, their systems long dead. By the stars, Navarro whispered. All those ships, they just died out here. Automated systems couldn't survive the flux, Havelock said grimly. AI went blind. Drives failed. They never stood a chance. Elias stared in silence. Dozens of alien craft, sleek, perfect, elegant, all reduced to floating tombs. The Daedalus 1 was the only ship still alive in the rift. Begin scans, he ordered quietly. We're not leaving until we know what killed them. Hours passed. The humans worked tirelessly, patching systems, cataloging wrecks, collecting data. What they found defied everything the Concorde believed about physics. The rift emitted periodic bursts of gravitic interference, unpredictable and chaotic. Every alien computer had crashed trying to calculate it. But humans didn't calculate chaos, they navigated it. That was the truth Drelt and his kind never understood. Humans didn't avoid failure, they built for it. They expected it. And because of that, they survived where others perished. By the second day, the Daedalus had mapped a stable orbit around the hidden world. Elias stood by the viewport as the planet storms flashed below like angry gods. Transmit to Concorde Command, he said. Message, we found your lost ships. Attach data logs and telemetry. Navarro hesitated. You think they'll believe us? Elias smiled faintly. They won't have a choice. When the message reached the Concorde weeks later, chaos erupted across the galactic network. Every species that had once mocked the humans now demanded the impossible. How did they survive the rift? Drelt himself arrived at the Sol embassy in outrage, his luminous tendrils flaring. You disobeyed direct orders. You endangered lives. You violated treaties. Elias met him with calm eyes. And we found something you couldn't. You should thank us. The alien diplomat's voice rose in fury. You entered a forbidden region with that primitive vessel. Do you expect me to believe it survived? Elias handed him a data crystal. Read it. When Drelt connected to the file, his body lights dimmed, shifting from blue to white in disbelief. The data didn't lie. The humans had mapped the rift, catalogued every lost Concorde ship, and returned alive. How? Drelt whispered. Elias leaned forward slightly. Because we built it to be ridiculous. The storms over the hidden planet were unlike anything recorded in the Concorde archives. They raged with a frequency that bent magnetic sensors into static and made light itself flicker like candle flames. From orbit, the clouds looked alive, pulsing with electric veins and radiating unnatural energy signatures. The Daedalus 1 circled silently above the chaos, its hull still holding strong against the gravity fluxes. To the aliens who once called it primitive, its survival now bordered on the miraculous. But to Elias Mercer and his crew, it was proof of design. Magnetometers spiking again, said Lieutenant Navarro, watching her screens flicker. Something down there is generating massive energy, not natural storms. Artificial? Elias asked. Definitely. And old, Navarro said. Whatever it is, it's buried under the planet's surface deep, like a power core or a machine. Chief Engineer Havelock grunted. No Concorde ship could survive atmospheric descent in that interference. They'd fry their flight computers before hitting the clouds. Elias smiled faintly. Then it's a good thing we don't use those. He turned to the helm. Prepare for entry. There was no debate. The crew trusted him and the ship. They'd seen what it could do. The Daedalus 1 descended through the lightning storms, flames licking its armored hull, every plate groaning under the pressure. The analog dials on the flight deck swung wildly, but human hands corrected them. The ship flew not because of algorithms, but because its pilots felt the turbulence. When the clouds broke, they saw the surface, a wasteland of shattered rock and metallic debris stretching for miles. At the center stood a monolithic crater filled with luminous fog. And within that fog pulsed a colossal structure, partially buried, glowing with a faint green light. The crew fell silent. Even the hum of the engines seemed to fade in awe. "What the hell is that?" Navarro whispered. Elias stared at the scanner feed. The structure was ancient, far older than the Concorde, possibly older than any known civilization. Massive spires extended from a central core, connected by curved bridges of dark alloy that defied classification. It was not just a ruin. It was asleep. "Land us near the perimeter," Elias said. "We're going in." Groundfall. The Daedalus 1 touched down amid the ruins, its landing struts hissing as they settled into the cracked earth. Outside, the air shimmered with residual energy, visible distortions that made the landscape ripple. Elias, Navarro, and Havelock stepped out wearing reinforced suits, their visors reflecting arcs of distant lightning. The structure loomed before them like a cathedral built by gods who had forgotten time. Navarro scanned the wall of the nearest spire. Compositions off the charts. No element match. "It's partially alive." Havelock ran a hand across the dark metal. "It's cold. Whatever this is, it's been dead for a long time." Elias crouched by a series of alien glyphs carved into the surface, spiral patterns mixed with straight lines, almost like a language trying to mimic geometry. "Not dead," he murmured. "Just dormant." As if hearing him, the ground trembled. A deep, resonant hum echoed from beneath their feet, vibrating through their suits. Navarro's scanner went wild. Power surge, massive. "Something's waking up." They backed away as fissures opened across the ground, spilling blinding light. The spires pulsed once, twice, and then the green light intensified into a roar of energy. From deep within the planet, a sound emerged, a low mechanical moan, ancient and alien, but unmistakably artificial. Elias's voice was calm, steady. "Everyone back to the ship. Now." They ran. Behind them, the structure came alive, energy rising like a heartbeat, shaking the air itself. When they reached the Daedalus, Havelock slammed the hatch shut and activated internal dampeners. "Engines hot," Navarro called out. "We're lifting." The ship rose through the dense fog, buffeted by violent waves of magnetic energy. Elias strapped in, watching through the viewport as the planet itself seemed to awaken. The spires extended higher, linking into a network of light that reached for the upper atmosphere. And then, a signal. It wasn't words, not exactly, but every communication system on the Daedalus lit up with a transmission, pulsing in rhythmic intervals. Elias recognized the sequence. It wasn't alien. It was binary. "Binary code," Navarro said in disbelief. "It's talking, in our language?" Elias frowned. "No. Not our language. Universal logic, base 2. Whatever built that machine wasn't just communicating. It's computing." "But what's it saying?" Havelock asked. Navarro's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Translating, it's repeating a phrase. Containment breach imminent." The crew froze. "Containment of what?" Havelock demanded. Before anyone could answer, the planet's magnetic field flared like a sun. A massive shockwave erupted from the surface, rippling through space. The ship shuddered violently as alarms blared. "Shields holding," Navarro shouted. Elias gripped the railing, eyes locked on the view outside. That wasn't random. The machine wasn't failing. It was warning us. The comms crackled. "Incoming Concorde broadcast," Navarro said. "It's Drelt." Elias exhaled slowly. "Put him through." The alien Diplomat appeared on the main display, his tendrils dimmed to a pale white. Behind him, Concorde officials whispered in chaos. "Human," Drelt hissed, "what have you done? Every sensor in this quadrant just spiked. You've awakened something the Concorde forbade for millennia." Elias met his glare calmly. "You mean you knew about this?" Drelt hesitated, a flicker of guilt in the bioluminescent glow of his body. "It is a weapon," he said finally. "A remnant from before the Concorde's founding. We buried it beneath that world and sealed it within the rift to protect the galaxy. Your primitive meddling could unleash. Then why didn't your ships survive long enough to warn anyone? Elias interrupted. Your perfect technology failed because it couldn't adapt. It couldn't survive chaos. Zrelt's voice faltered. And you think yours can? Elias smiled faintly. It already has. The line went dead. Below them, the planet's surface split open, rivers of green fire erupting as the ancient machine activated fully. Energy arcs shot into orbit, and the rift's gravitational waves began to intensify. Navarro looked to Elias, fear in her eyes. What do we do, sir? Elias stared into the chaos, thinking of the laughter in the council hall, the mockery, the arrogance. All of it seemed distant now. We finish what we started, he said quietly. We built this ship for the impossible. Time to prove it. The planet tore itself apart below them. The awakened machine, a lattice of impossible geometry and searing green energy, rose from the crust like a god made of broken mathematics. Its tendrils of light reached into orbit, rewriting the gravity field with every pulse. The Daedalus 1 shook violently as it tried to climb above the storm. Structural stress at 92%. Havelock shouted over the alarms. Hull integrity failing. Divert power from the reactor's secondary loop. Elias barked. Keep analog systems online. Digital circuits will fry in this field. The ship bucked, groaning like a living thing under the strain. Sparks showered the command deck. Where a Concorde vessel would have disintegrated under the energy surge, the Daedalus endured, its crude metal frame holding against the impossible. Navarro's fingers danced across the control board. That machine, it's drawing power from the rift itself. It's feeding off the distortion. Elias watched the data stream scroll across her screen. The readings were absurd, like watching the universe rewrite its own rules. Can we disrupt the feed? Maybe, Havelock said, teeth gritted. But we'd have to get closer. Elias gave a grim smile. Then we go closer. The crew didn't question it. They'd seen what their ship could do. Built for chaos, not beauty. That was the creed they lived by. Descent into the rift. The Daedalus 1 angled downward again, fighting gravity's shifting pull as it dove through lightning and debris. The viewport glowed emerald from the energy flares below. As they neared the colossal structure, the scale became almost incomprehensible, towers the size of cities, spinning slowly in defiance of physics. The ship's analog sensors flickered erratically, but they still worked. No alien AI could have parsed this madness. But human eyes and instinct could. Magnetic interference increasing, Navarro warned. Any closer and our reactor will destabilize. Then shut it down, Elias said. Navarro blinked. Sir. Kill the reactor. Switch to batteries. We'll glide. The ship's engines faded, leaving only the whisper of momentum and the groan of stressed metal. The Daedalus coasted through the glowing storm, drifting toward the heart of the machine. Elias turned to his engineer. Havelock, you built this hull to withstand a supernova's radiation test. You think it can survive a pulse? Havelock gave a dry grin. It'll melt the paint off, but she'll hold. Good, Elias said. Then let's end this. They reached the center, a swirling vortex of light and gravity. The machine's core pulsed like a black heart wrapped in lightning. At its center hung an orb, a reactor of alien design, spinning faster with every surge. That's it, Navarro said. If it breaches, it'll turn the rift into a singularity. Half the quadrant will collapse. Elias stared at it, then at his ship's systems. Their shields were gone. Their power reserves were low. But they still had one advantage. Manual control. Prepare the pulse drive, he said. I want a direct magnetic inversion on my mark. Havelock's eyes widened. That'll fry every circuit we've got. Then it's a good thing we brought spares. The crew exchanged a look, a mix of fear and pride. They knew the plan was suicide. But humans had always done the impossible by starting with the insane. The pulse. The Daedalus 1 dove into the heart of the storm. The hull screamed as energy tore across it, melting armor, blackening metal. The ship was no longer flying, it was falling through chaos. 50 meters. Navarro shouted. "We're in range." Elias gripped the manual throttle with both hands. "All hands, brace." He slammed the lever forward. The ship's pulse drive ignited in a violent flare of energy, not clean, not elegant, but raw and furious. A surge of electromagnetic force blasted outward, colliding with the alien reactor's feed. The rift screamed in protest. Light fractured across the stars as the gravitational field began to collapse inward. Reading massive feedback. Havelock yelled. "We're overloading." "Hold it." Elias roared. The Daedalus 1 twisted and tumbled, caught in a maelstrom of collapsing energy. The analog circuits sparked, systems died, lights flickered, but still, the crew fought on. Hands on levers. Eyes on gauges. Hearts pounding with something more reliable than code. And then, with a thunderous silence, the machine died. The light vanished. The rift's distortion faded into black space. For a moment, everything was still. Then came the explosion, a shockwave of pure kinetic force. It hurled the Daedalus outward, tearing panels from its hull, shredding its antennae. Systems went dark. The ship drifted, dead, among the stars. Inside, smoke filled the deck. Alarms blared, faint and broken. Elias coughed, forcing his eyes open. "Status," he rasped. Havelock groaned from the floor. "Alive, somehow." Navarro looked up from her cracked console. "Rift stable. The weapon's gone. But, we're stranded. No power." Elias managed a weak smile. "Then we'll fix it. Like we always do." Recognition. 2 weeks later, rescue ships arrived. Not Concorde vessels, their computers couldn't handle the rift's remaining flux. Instead, it was a fleet of human-built freighters and old warships, retrofitted with the same stubborn engineering as the Daedalus 1. They hauled the crippled vessel home like a relic of victory. When Elias finally stood again before the Concorde Council, the laughter was gone. Minister Zrelt hovered before him, his bioluminescent tendrils dim with shame. The alien diplomat's voice was quiet, almost reverent. "We reviewed the data from your ship. Without your intervention, the rift would have consumed this arm of the galaxy." Elias nodded once. "It was a team effort." Zrelt's glow flickered. "Your design defies logic. By every metric, it should have failed. And yet, it survived where ours did not." Elias met his gaze. "That's because it wasn't designed to succeed. It was designed to survive failure." Silence filled the chamber. The aliens, once so dismissive, now watched the human with something resembling awe. They saw now that humanity's primitive ways weren't crude, they were resilient. The Daedalus 1 wasn't a joke. It was a philosophy. Elias turned to leave, but Zrelt's voice stopped him. "Ambassador Mercer," he said softly, "what will you do now?" Elias smiled faintly. "Build another one." Epilogue. Years later, the Daedalus 2 launched from Earth orbit, sleeker, stronger, yet still unmistakably human. It bore the same rugged armor, the same analog core, the same promise. Its hull carried an inscription burned into the metal. Built to survive the impossible. In the years that followed, other civilizations began to imitate the design. Not because it was beautiful or efficient, but because it worked. The ridiculous human ship became the blueprint for an age of rediscovery. And somewhere beyond the stars, Elias Mercer's voice echoed through every transmission log, reminding them all of what humanity had always known. Perfection breaks. Imperfection endures.